Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of KDM. K standing for Kit Bowen, D for Dimitri Panos, yours truly, and M, of course, for movies. We are a new movie review show that I, along with good friend, colleague, and extraordinary co-host Kit Bowen. Hello.
Hi, everybody. Welcome.
Welcome, and thank you for tuning in. Today, we're going to be talking about the last voyage of the Dimitri. No, the last voyage of the Demeter, or the Demeter, or however you pronounce it. I get confused.
Demeter, actually. I looked on.
I think it's Demeter or Demeter or Dimitri. I don't know. But the last voyage of the Demeter, who is a Greek goddess, actually.
Huh.
So it is the latest from Universal, once again, going back to their classic Universal monsters, this one being Dracula. The movie is actually based off of one chapter from the classic horror novel written by Bram Stoker. It is chapter 7, which chronicles through Captain's journals this ill-fated, snake-bit, dare I say, vampire-bit voyage, which takes Dracula from Carpathia to London. For those who are Dracula fans, this story has been told in a lot of movies. In fact, most every movie that involves Dracula, you see a little bit of this, but this tells the story of what happened to that ill-fated crew. So, Kit, we saw this movie together. I always love watching movies together with you. It's a blast because we get to, if it's a horror movie, we get to jump and shock together like that together. This was that kind of a movie. And then my favorite part is walking back to the car and talking about the movie. Yeah. So what are your thoughts on the last voyage of the Demeter?
Like I enjoyed it. I mean, it's not anything that would, be considered like over and above the story. It's fairly, paint by numbers as far as a monster movie, where you have a group of people in a confined space, and they get picked off one by one, of course, by Dracula himself. Not a pretty Dracula, by the way. Not a pretty Dracula at all. We'll get into some sexy vampires in a minute, but not a sexy vampire. But yeah, I enjoyed it. I thought the performances were pretty good. Character development was, a little scant, especially with some of the other crew, but there were some that you sort of ended up rooting for, including Corey Hawkins, who he had a British accent in this, and I had to look him up to see if he was actually British. No, he's not. He's actually American. So yay for the Americans doing the Brits. Around. So yeah, he's sort of our eyes and ears to this, to the story. And then you've got the crew, which is helmed by Liam Cunningham from Game of Thrones, who's the captain, and then you have this cute little boy played by, what's his name? Who's he played by again? Toby is the character name.
Toby's the character name, and let me look him up. Young Woody Newman.
Woody Newman. I guess it's the grandson of the captain, and then you've got the various crew members, including we're going to butcher his last name, David
Dashmachalian, I believe.
Yeah,
I believe that's it. Yeah, I hope so.
So yeah, and then we had a castaway who played by a young actress, and Aisley
Franciosi as the mysterious stowaway, Anna.
Anna. Castaway. I didn't make castaway. I meant stowaway.
Yes. Castaway.
No, that's wrong. Anyway, she
makes an appearance in an episode of Gilligan's Island. No, I'm kidding. I joke. I kid because I love.
So yeah, so it was serviceable. Like I was in it. It was the direction's great. It's very atmospheric. It's thick. The ship itself is almost a character as well, which is fun. Lots of nooks and crannies in this ship, and lots of places for our master vampire to hide in, and he does. But just, yeah, the whole feel of it was really good. I think that's what kept me in it. I was like, ugh, you know, I was feeling it, feeling the dread. So that worked well for me. But yeah, I mean, you know, serviceable thriller in my opinion. How about
All right. Well, for me, for this vampire movie, I guess the best I can say is that it didn't suck. But also I have to say that there was very little bite to it as well. You mentioned about the cast, or let's talk about like the crew of the Demeter. And yeah, I just felt that most of them were there for fodder or food. You didn't really get to know much about a lot of them, just a small handful, and it was
Yeah.
already a small handful of people to begin with. Yes, I did enjoy Corey Hawkins as he was Clemens. He's basically our main character next to our Captain Elliot, as you talked about, played by Liam Cunningham, who's really good. Let's see. The movie was directed by Andre Overdahl, and he is a Guillermo del Toro favorite. I believe they did together, and he directed for Guillermo del Toro, who produced Scary Stories You Tell in the Dark. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah.
He does he, along with his crew, his cinematographers and editors, yes, they take what in television terms would be a bottle episode, meaning it's one setting basically with very few characters. The setting being the ship, the Demeter, this cargo ship carrying Dracula along with 49 other crates of his dirt and such. And they do create atmosphere, and Overdahl is able to deliver on some scares and creeps and chills, and makes it look very, very foggy and creepy and scary, which you would hope. Now, for a good horror movie, for me, you know, if I care for the characters, that makes it that much more terrifying. And in a movie like this, I think its biggest hurdle is, as horror fans, as Dracula fans, you know what happens to this crew, right?
Yeah.
You already know. So you have to make it interesting, and you have to let the audience, you know, get to know this crew, because if you get to like these people when they meet their ill-fated preordained doom, you feel something, and it also makes horror better.
Yeah.
And they didn't quite do that. I've been reading and heard about some comparisons to Alien, and I say no way, because Alien actually was written like that. Now, Alien's not based off of anything, but the writing of it, you got to pretty much know where each of that crew of the Nostromo, who they were, what they were working. And so when things happened, it was pretty, you know, you go, oh darn.
Yeah.
This movie, some people you'd go, oh darn. And other people, it was just like whatever. So yeah, I think that was my biggest problem, is they didn't write the movie well enough for me to care for a lot of the people. And even as creepy as that ship was, right? I think one of the best things too that was really cool about the ship is Toby, as the little boy, the grandson to Captain Elliot. He loved being on board. And there's this really nice scene where he's giving Clemens a tour, and he shows him, and this happens towards the beginning of the movie, if you knock on the heavy wood,
Yeah.
it reverberates throughout the whole ship, and people can give a clear sign, or hey, there's danger.
Yeah, I
And
love that.
it was a nice audio cue.
Yeah.
That was set up, and it was part of the character of the ship. So yeah, I thought the movie was okay. I had hoped for it to be better. I just wonder, it also tries to set something up in the end without, I don't want to spoil anything,
Yeah.
but it sets something up that doesn't make any sense to me. And I don't know what its purpose was and what they were trying to do,
Yeah.
because it just didn't make any sense to me. So that was kind of a little wonky for me, but I give it props on its creepiness, and some of the performances were good. Um,
Yeah.
would you agree that the Anna character, I mean, she's a fine actress, this Aisling Franciosi, but and it was basically exposition.
Yeah. She was she's the one who told us the
Yeah.
because
Yeah. So,
yeah.
but it was okay. I had hoped for it to be better. And I also wondered, God, at this point, did we need this story? Because sometimes I think that mystery makes something, whether it's a book or another movie, a little bit scarier. Had they done a better job, I would have been, oh yeah, that's cool. They told a story, but now I wonder, it doesn't do anything to propel the Dracula story, I think. So, because
Yeah.
he's scary on his own.
That's kind of where I think that's where the appeal will come from for this
Mhm.
is kind of it's part of the Dracula lore, which interesting, they kind of were able to take the liberties to expand upon a story that wasn't really fleshed out that much. So that's, they had some freedom that way and they did their best. But yeah, I'd give this probably 3 stars for me. How about you?
I give it the 3 fangs, or I give it 3 stars as well. It's okay.
It's okay.
Okay. Yeah.
So let me ask you, who, because so many Dracula movies. Who's your favorite Dracula?
You are right. I think there's lots to choose from, but me personally, I have to go all the way back to 1931, and it's Bela Lugosi. The Todd Browning Draculas, when you talk about atmosphere,
Yeah.
that movie oozes it. It's a universal classic for a reason, and it in a way kicked off that universal classic monster movie.
Yeah.
And every time I watch it, and I watch it every Halloween season, I just look and I see what Browning did, Lugosi did, along with his cast, and it's so atmospherically scary.
Yeah.
By use of, it's black and white, so it's use of shadow, dark and light, and Lugosi.
But he definitely created what we have now know as the Dracula character.
Yeah, so he's always my favorite. There are others, but he definitely is my favorite.
Well, I think the one that we both feel is kind of a underrated one was the John Badham Dracula with Frank Langella, which one of the first times, I think probably one of the first Dracula movies, the proper Dracula movie that I ever saw, because I don't think I saw the Bela Lugosi movie. And I was like, wow, he is sexy. He really epitomized that. He was just, he was something yummy in that. And you know what? To this day, he still kind of ranks up there for me. I mean, there's been Luke Evans has played him, and Gerard Butler has played him, and of course the other one I love. Well, we'll talk about Interview with a Vampire, which is a whole nother sort of subsection of
it's not Dracula, but yeah, 2 of the sexiest men alive.
Yep, 2 of the sexiest men alive. Yeah, right there.
Yep.
Lestat and oh gosh, why am I blanking?
Brad Pitt, Tom Cruise.
Pitt, yeah. But I also loved I think it's called Vampire Lestat. I think that's the name of the movie with Stuart Townsend. Well, it was a series.
It was a series, correct? I don't know if it was a movie, but
there was a second movie. This was
I thought that was Queen of the Damned, but I forgot about Vampire Lestat. Yeah, I think
you're right.
Okay,
Queen of the Damned. So sort of a
right.
Interview with a Vampire, and what's Lestat up to. So yeah, Stuart Townsend was just beautiful in that as well. But then on the flip side, we have the scary vampire movies, and there's been plenty of those. But for me, the one that just terrified me was 30 Days of Night.
Yeah, it's a good one.
With Josh Hartnett and Danny Houston playing the horrible, horrible looking vampires. Oh my
Yes.
gosh, they were scary looking,
Yeah.
terrifying. This whole idea of, this Arctic town or whatever having 30 days of night, and so there's snow and it's cold and the blood on the snow. I mean, it was a very effective movie, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I believe that too is based off of a graphic novel, and what a fantastic adaptation
Yeah.
it is. And
Yeah.
it was, yeah, you're right. I mean, again, when you talk about atmosphere, that movie had that all. I want to go back to that 1979, July 13th, 1979, the Frank Langella, which was based off of the play that he made that role, Dracula, again, famous for him. It was a hit on, and I believe it was Broadway, and that's how the producers and John Badham found him, and they asked him to be in this movie. What's interesting about it now, John Badham, for those who may not be familiar with his work, you've probably heard of a little movie called War Games.
Yep.
Maybe even Blue Thunder. The gentleman has had a career, in this movie he worked with, the likes of Frank Langella, Donald Pleasance from Halloween fame and The Great Escape, and James Bond, and the great Sir Laurence Olivier, who played Van Helsing. Something interesting
It's
to note,
it's a great one.
but something interesting to note, that you may have forgotten, that particular movie starts off with the voyage of the Demeter. It starts off, so it totally skips out the prologue of either Harker or Jonathan Harker or Renfield going to Dracula's castle to drop the papers.
Yeah.
This starts off with that voyage, by the way, and it shows the captain lashing himself to the big steering wheel of the ship and such. So I find that interesting, but it is actually one of my favorites, and John Badham really brings out the creep and the horror and the gothic horror of it all. And Langella is perfect. He has that thing with his eyes, like where they tremble almost, and there's a scientific name.
Oh, get out, man.
but like you could, when he did that stare and his eyes moved, like you could see like the hypnosis, the control that he had on, say, Lucy Westerner, or in this case it was Lucy Van Helsing. it was really great. Oh, when we had Kate Nelligan too.
Oh yeah, that's right.
Attractive
She played
woman.
the Lucy character. Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, but of course, everyone will probably mostly know the Coppola one with Gary Oldman and whatever.
Right.
For me personally, not my most favorite. Not my most favorite. I feel like Gary Oldman it was fantastic when he was being Dracula and evil and stuff, but that kind of love story between he and Winona Ryder, I didn't buy it. I just didn't feel the chemistry between the two of them. That's kind of an important part of the story.
I think so. I don't disagree, although the movie has grown on me through the years, through its style and everything, and it is homage to the original classic. But I do agree with you regarding that relationship. Yeah. I liked her better with Keanu Reeves, and
or Keanu.
Yeah, and
a little bit miscast in this. A little bit miscast.
Perhaps. I mean, I thought he was fine. There are other people who are in the movie that, I mean, it's on
still
the big
a good
screen,
movie. I mean, overall, it's okay.
Right. And Dracula too has gone through. Yes, he could be horrific, but he also can be comedic as well, as shown in Abbott and Costello meet Frankenstein. But of course, there's also movies like Renfield, which is a fun movie, great time. Well, you don't think Nicolas Cage sexy?
No. He was sort of a man vampire, but he was also kind of a scary looking vampire. So
yeah, and we had fun watching.
Yeah,
we had fun watching that together, didn't we?
We did.
Right.
That was a fun movie. I feel like that'll be kind of one that lasts.
Yeah, I think
people
so too.
want to watch it again on streaming and that kind of thing. So yeah, that was a lot.
And what about George Hamilton and Love at First Bite? He's sexy. Come on,
He's great. Of course, then we should talk about Christopher Lee and Peter Cushing times.
Of course. Yeah, the Hammer films, which
Yeah.
take, the Hammer films took a different approach than the Todd Brownings, and their movies were in color, so they got to they got to show a little bit more blood. There was a lot more cleavage in the Hammer films as well. You can't deny the Christopher Lee as Dracula and Peter Cushing as Van Helsing. That dynamic is just classic within itself. And they were two good friends. And whenever they were asked to reprise their roles, they usually said, yeah, sure. Anytime I get to work with my pal. Yeah. And you could tell they vamped it up, so to speak.
Yeah. Well, I honestly feel like this genre, this type of horror genre, vampires, will continue on and on and on. They are just too rich of characters not to make stories around them, from TV shows like Vampire Diaries to Twilight. I mean, it's
True Blood,
even like Supernatural. I mean, they're just they are a interesting monster, and I find them always intriguing in various ways.
Well, audiences do too, Kit. Yeah. Audiences like a good vampire movie, and if one doesn't do so well, another one will come along and do really well.
Yeah.
And it seems interesting that I think when people hear Dracula, they think, it's already been done. Like there's nothing really new to happen here. So they'll gravitate to other vampire stories, like An Interview of a Vampire. I can't think of the last vampire-ish movie that has come out, to be honest, but outside of Renfield. Renfield is very recent. It's within this year.
John Carpenter's Vampires. There was that one.
Oh yeah, yep. John Carpenter's Vampires. Yep, with James Woods. I believe. Yep.
But yeah,
so they're always alluring in one way, shape, or form.
Yep.
And you can play around with it too. You don't just have to have adult males. You could have teenage girls and you could have male and female, and the genre works. And there's a reason for it too. You brought up something I think it's important. Sexy Dracula, right? I think sexy in the vampire world too, because there's something dark about it, but there's a gothic romance to it all, and that's very much explored in Anne Rice's novels and within the movie. Interview with the Vampire, it's like, yes, you get to have this life of immortality. The only thing is you can't do it in the daytime and you have to feed off.
They didn't have daylight rings. They need to go to Mystic Falls and Vampire Diaries, and
and you have to feed off of blood of people, or live creatures. So those are a couple of drawbacks. Just a few. But look, when you look at what Twilight did in both its novel, like the books were hugely popular, the movies were hugely popular, and why does Vampire Diaries, why was that big? Why was True Blood big? And you had, I mean, let's be honest, you had some sexy people playing these monsters.
Please, Alexander Skarsgård, please bite me right here. He was very sexy. Wow. Yeah. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah. Well, it's a good allure.
Dimitri, this was a lot of fun. Obviously, the Last Voyage of Demeter is, it's okay. It ranks on the list there somewhere, but certainly some of the ones we mentioned before, if you haven't seen some of those, definitely check them out. But
yeah, especially the one that I can't say enough about the 1979. And also, if you haven't seen Renfield.
Yes.
I mean, that movie was a pleasant surprise. I had no idea where that movie was going to go.
Exactly.
But I loved it. And for you gore hounds out there, there's plenty of it in Renfield, and it does it it's a little tongue in cheek, but the movie's it's a cross between horror and action.
It's really good.
I recommend that too, if you can find it on. I think it's on Peacock.
So
So
we'll be back again to review. I think probably maybe the next big one is the Gran Turismo, right?
Gran Turismo, yes, yes. I think we really should do that.
Okay.
It's yeah. I saw it over the weekend, and
Yeah, we're
yeah,
gonna definitely gonna do that one.
yeah, yeah.
Car racing movies are great.
So yeah, and this one does it good. This one is not your typical video game based off a video game movie. It is actually a true story, but